Hi, welcome to Painting Together with Acrylics. I'm Gigi Chen, and welcome to my art studio in New York City. So I'm really excited. We're going to be painting one of my very favorite subjects. We're going to be painting outer space. I've always wanted to go to outer space. So I started painting paintings of outer space a couple of years ago, and we're going to learn a little bit about luminosity and how to create these like beautiful little textures. And in a lot of ways, this is incredibly abstract. So if you guys have some abstract painting techniques, wonderful. And also, if you look down below, there will be the reference pictures. So you can download the reference picture for this painting. And there's also a link for a free ebook from Artist Network, and it's called Abstract Painting Techniques. So you can bring that in later, look at that, and we can learn how to create some luminosity, these little details, and how to kind of paint these very abstract kind of clouds. So let's start going, all right? And I'm gonna go through all of my, let me just get you guys onto my good screen. So here we go. I'm gonna go through these, just move you guys out. So how are you guys doing today? I love it, Savannah, Georgia, I love it. I have not been to Savannah, but I love Georgia. And let me just kind of move things over so I can see you guys a little bit better. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, remember you guys can write them in like boldface so I can see it better. So here is all of my stuff. So I'm working on wood. So here is my sample painting. I'm working on wood. You guys can work on anything you want. You can even work on like some thick mixed media paper or on canvas, but I like wood just because. So we're gonna I have my wet palette, and there is a video on how you guys can create a wet palette down below. But it's mostly just a little sponge and some paper. So we're gonna go through our colors together. I have some titanium white, some cadmium yellow, yellow ochre, some red, cadmium orange, burnt umber, ultramarine, cerulean, my favorite Payne's gray, and I have some Mars black, and I have a little thing of medium. So I generally like to use this medium. If you don't have medium, it's totally okay. You can also use a little bit of water, but if you're going to do that, just use a little bit of water. So this is like my favorite kind. They also have it in glossy, so whatever you guys have is awesome. And I have a huge array of brushes. We're gonna just kind of go through things as we go. As every time I change my brush, I'll let you guys know about it. These are my well-worn favorite brushes. They're everywhere. They're kind of messy. And so somebody's asking me, do you rest your hand on the drawing when it's a wet surface? So acrylic paint dries really quickly. So sometimes I do, but if it's wet, I say sometimes just check the surface of it so you don't like rest on it too much. But I tend to work because I'm a righty, I tend to work from left to right. So here we go. I'm going to change out. So I have my wood panel, and as I said, you guys can use anything you want. And remember, you can download the reference picture for space down below. So are we ready? Are we ready to go? I love this. I have somebody here from Moore Park, California, Chicago. Not been to Chicago. Can't wait to go to Chicago. Manitoba. Hi, love Manitoba. And let's see, what are we gonna do first? So if you guys haven't downloaded the picture, now is a great time. If not, it's kind of in your corner. But if not, honestly, this painting I love because you can kind of just kind of play around with it. There's not a lot of rules, I like to say, for this. Let me just move you guys over a little bit. There's not a lot of rules for painting this painting. I mostly like to think of it as sort of like very gestural, and also like I love space. Let me just make this a little brighter for you guys. Let's see, there we go, bring that up just a little bit for you guys. All right, so let's start off. I'm using a big brush. So you see, I didn't start with anything. I didn't do any drawings yet. We're just like starting off with like a blank page. So I'm gonna start off with a really big brush. I'm gonna add a little bit of water, and I'm gonna go into my Payne's gray and my black, and I'm just going to start putting a base down. There we go. Add a little bit of water just to move it around. And remember, you guys can download that book called Abstract Painting Techniques, and that's free ebook from Artist Network. So I don't love to use a lot of black, but honestly, my favorite color to work with is Payne's Gray because it's so beautiful. It's really rich. Sometimes just using black can really flatten stuff out, but you know, you can kind of play around with that a little bit. So, and remember, you guys have to have a jar of water and a variety of brushes. I hope you have a variety of brushes, and any kind is fine. And I'm using mostly Utrecht paint, but if you don't have Utrecht paint, totally okay. If you have some cheap craft paint, also this exercise is perfect for that. So I'm going to put a little bit of Ultramarine, and I'm going to brush it over here. And so I'm thinking, like, when I'm looking at my reference picture, I also have the reference painting with me. So I'm cheating a little bit because I already know what I'm going to use. If you can notice that this part's a little bit bluer and this goes out into be a little bit redder. But we're mostly going to start off with a like blank canvas, and we're going to just create darks. So I love painting space. I love painting space because when you get to a certain point, it is so magical. You cannot believe that just a few brushstrokes and a few dots on the surface can be so cool. Like, you can't even believe it. I've always wanted to go to space. Have any of you guys ever want to go to space? I mean, seriously? Oh, somebody's asking, is anyone else painting along? Yeah, if any of you guys are painting along, let me know. Please write it down on this so I can say hi to you, or anybody who's actually painting along. But I think a lot of people actually are also sitting to just watch, right? Which is also really fun. So I'm using my Ultramarine, brushing along, adding a little bit of water. And usually on the show page, on the landing page, you can see what we're doing next week. And next week, I don't know if it's up yet, we're doing an eye. But this week is one of my favorites because I have always wanted to go to space. So how many of you guys have ever wanted and dreamt about going to space? I mean, maybe there's some astronauts out there watching. I'm not sure. Oh, hi, Arlene. I love that you're painting with me. I love it. And please, like, at the end, you can go on our show page and you can post. And actually, I saw that some people were posting on the Facebook page, which is also awesome. I saw some paintings that we did last week. That was pretty cool. Okay. I love it. Hi, Adele. Hi, Maddie. Maddie's mom. You're painting along. I love it. I love it. Okay, I'm already running out of paint. I'm going to go back and get my Ultramarine. Yeah, this background requires a lot of paint. And so we're basically going to repaint this background a couple of times, especially if it's not going on super thick. That's why I like the black and the Payne's Gray goes on really thick, so it's really nice. I'm going to use a little bit of Umber and put that in the corner, which I guess you can't really see so much because my picture is up there. But I'm just going to put it in the corner up here. And so, just like I want to say, generally, it doesn't really matter what it looks like right now. Like, if it looks kind of funny, as long as you're covering the surface, that's the whole point right now. I'm going to add a little bit of blue up here. And you know, I really want to stress, it doesn't really matter what kind of paint you use. Like, I'm using Utrecht because I happen to have Utrecht. But if you have craft paint or some cheaper paint or honestly anything, like, this is a wonderful exercise to do with any paint because what I'm going to teach you today can really work with any type, any kind. Oh, hi, Adele. I love that you're just like hanging out and watching. I hope you get to... Are you a painter, Adele? Do you also make things? Or are you just like a lover of art? Okay, so here we go. Going that. Adding, I'm just going back and forth between my Ultramarine and my black and my Payne's Gray. Let's see. Oh, I dreamt about being out in open space when I was little. Oh, it does feel kind of scary, right? To go out in outer space. But now there's space tourism, and I'm hoping that in my lifetime, I could go to space, right? I mean, that's like the dream. I don't know. I mean, I'm not exactly like an astrophysicist or anything. I've always just really loved the idea of traveling somewhere incredibly far away, you know? Like I love getting to travel when I get to. Sometimes you don't get to because like things are busy or we just, you know, are hanging out here, you know? Okay, so adding some black over here. So I'm just kind of going back and forth. So I'm gonna say that in general, there's not a lot of rules with this painting. That's why I wanted to show you guys how to paint space because you'll be really surprised at how few rules there are to painting space. I mean, if you guys like to paint clouds, it's like the best time for you to utilize your love for painting clouds because in a lot of ways, it's kind of like painting abstract clouds. And then little dots can create like something really gorgeous. So I'm also gonna go down there, use a little bit of this umber for this bottom part. You see, it doesn't always seem like there's rhyme or reason for what I'm doing, but eventually you'll see that it always comes together, as it generally does. And let's see, I'm going to, and so someone was asking me earlier about touching the painting. I mean, I really don't touch the painting. Not right now, I'm not, you know. Eventually when I get really close, because acrylic dries really fast, sometimes I do touch the surface, but right now I'm not. I'm just using this big brush and I'm just really going back. When you go back and forth between colors, are you wiping your brush in between? I'm not, but you can. You can if you want. I'm gonna take a little bit of brown, put it on the side. I'm generally not, just because it doesn't really matter if all the colors are mixing in this phase. So right now you see it's a little bit mottled. So I'm going to give it a second, answer a couple of questions. I think some of this is already dry, but I don't want to wipe it, mess up things too much. I'm going to see what you guys are. I'm going to say hi to you guys for a little bit and wait for this to dry for a couple of seconds. I do craft it. I love it. Yes, hi Adele. I love that you do craft. What kind of crafting do you do? Like, tell me more. Tell me more about your crafting. And I love that you're just hanging out. Maybe you'll like eventually start painting, right? Let's see. Let's see. Oh, there's someone here from Juneau, Alaska. I love it. Gonzalo is painting along. You're painting on an easel. I wish I were painting on an easel, but it's really hard to set up a camera above an easel. I'm working on a desk right now, and it's sloped. So sometimes the paint will drip down because we're at a slope. Okay, so I'm going to go over it once more. Let it dry a little bit. So if your painting is a little dry, even if it's not too dry, you can still do the second part. I'm going to go in and just go in for a second kill. Okay? And I'm telling you that even if you don't get it completely flat, like every surface, the whole surface covered, it's totally okay. There's something about painting space where it doesn't really matter. And you'll see. You'll see what I'm talking about later. Okay, so I'm just gonna cover up some parts and try not to cover up some other parts. Yeah, the ultramarine's a little thin, so sometimes that could be a little bit. I'm gonna use a little bit of umber and go into here, go into the corners. Because I think I'm going to keep these clouds kind of reddish. I'm just going to move my window a little bit. I can see you guys a little bit better. There we go. Oh, you do counted, cross stitch, beading, weaving, crochet, quilting. Oh my God, that's amazing. I love it. I honestly wish I was so much better. I wish that I were better at doing things like that. I always wish that I could do. I wish I were better at crafting. I know there's some people that are so good at knitting. I never quite picked it up. I did a little bit when I was a kid. My mother sewed, but I never picked it up from her. I wish that I had. There's so many things. There are so many things that I wish that I didn't give up when I was a kid. I wish that I had learned how to sew. So I think it's amazing when people are really good at crafting. So a little bit, I'm going back into my Payne's Gray. I'm going to fill that in a little bit more. And honestly, as I said, it doesn't matter if it's not perfect right now because we are going to paint over it. Okay, I'm going to go over this a little bit more. So I'm just kind of going back. I'm going I'm creating kind of like this weird abstract ground, right? Because we're going to paint over this. I'm kind of creating a base for everything that we're doing. Okay, so here we go. Oh, hello, people from Atlanta. I love Atlanta. My best friend lives in Atlanta. Mine is still wet for that second layer. It's pulling up. Okay, Elizabeth, then wait. Then your paint, if your paint is really wet, like I didn't use a lot of water, then wait a few minutes and then do it again. And if you have like places like here, it's a little bit mottled, it's okay. I'm telling you, this is not a crazy thing. This is not a crazy painting. You can wait a little bit, or you can, or you can paint right over what we're about to do. Because this is one of those very interesting paintings where you don't need a lot. Okay, acrylics is your favorite medium? Yes, I love acrylics. It's not my favorite medium, actually. It's one of my favorites. I actually started doing acrylics about, only about 5 years ago. I taught myself acrylics. Before that, I was doing oils. I found that, sometimes you have a medium, you find the medium that you really love, and when I found acrylics, it was just felt more like me, and I loved it. It's not that I prefer it one way or another. I just really love it, But I actually am much more of a natural drafts person. I draw a lot more than I paint, but I kind of go back and forth. I have days where I paint more, but I personally am much more natural at drawing. But I do, kind of go back and forth. It's a little bit of everything. I'm sure a lot of you guys do a little bit of everything, right? I mean, how many of you guys, for you, this is like the first time you've ever done acrylics? Or maybe this is the first phase of your acrylic journey. Like, I want to know all about that. So I'm going to use this, not too big, Filbert. It's big. It's no particular brand. And I always like to say, it doesn't matter what brand you use. As long as you are comfortable using what you have, then that's totally okay. So I'm going to go into the red, and I'm just going to start doing this. I'm telling you, this is a lot like doing an abstract painting. So I'm just going to give a little bit of base. I'm just kind of brushing back and forth. Brushing back and forth. So yeah, I really don't think that it matters what kind of brands you use for brushes, as long as you're comfortable with it. Like sometimes I go into a store and sometimes I go to the sales rack and I go, oh, maybe I like these. I like to use these kind of soft nylon type brushes because they're very comfortable for me. Like I'm not great using the really hard bristle brushes, so I don't tend to use them, and I don't like brushes that are way, 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 way too soft. Oh, you're in phase 1. I love it. I love it. How are you feeling so far? You've taken some of my other classes, right? Maybe you have. I want you guys to feel super comfortable. Ask me all sorts of questions, Like if you're confused by anything, please let me know. I'm going to try my best to answer all your questions, or as many as I can. So I'm still just putting down a base. Now I'm going to grab a little bit of umber, and still just brushing in some base. Just brushing in some base colors. How many of you guys have painted clouds before? If you guys have some basic cloud knowledge, then this might not be as hard. So I'm going to go back into a little bit of red. So sometimes I'm going to ask you to kind of look at my palette, because sometimes I forget to call out the colors. I'll try my best to call out the colors. I'm adding a little bit of red and going back. I think my camera's a little bright. I'm just going to turn that down just a little bit. There we go. That might be a little bit better. Color is a little bit more accurate now. Okay. Something about painting live, you have to make sure that it looks right for everybody, right? Okay, so I'm just kind of going back and forth. Gonzalo, have you done a lot of art? Have you done a lot of acrylic painting? I'm gonna go back, go into my umber. Let me just see, a little bit of my brush got in there. And I'm just gonna go back and forth. Sometimes I'm gonna add a little bit of medium to move the paint around a little bit, just so I don't need more paint, but I just wanna like move the paint around a little bit. So here I am. So you can kind of see that I'm putting down this very specific base, and then I'm gonna wash my brush. So remember to have a rag, it's a paper towel, right? Okay. Oh, I love it. Elizabeth, thank you so much for watching all my classes on Artist Network. That's amazing. If you go to our landing page, there's a bunch of links to like other work I've done with Artist Network. I have like a couple of other, like a few other videos with them. One of them is we paint like a landscape. And another, we have a set of videos where it's about kickstarting your sketchbook, you know, because I think sketchbooks are incredibly important. So I have like a video set with Artist Network with them, and you know, I've also written some articles, some fun articles actually, because working with them is really, really quite fun. So I'm grabbing a little bit of this Ultramarine. I'm going to grab a little bit of the Cerulean. Cerulean's a little funny, but it's okay. And I'm just going to start putting down a base. A little bit of base. Yeah, and on the landing page, you can learn a little bit more about me and what I do and the work I've done with Artist Network, which is kind of awesome. I've been working with them back and forth for the last like few years, and I was pretty stoked when they asked me to do this show, you know, because I love the idea of like teaching people at all these like different levels, and just like, it's funny because I've done some teaching of acrylic painting, but now it's sort of like diving deep into it, right? Trying to impart a little bit of the knowledge that I've tried to figure out over the last few years. Let's see, here we go. So I was actually trained as an oil painter. I worked with an artist for almost 20 years. I am still with her sometimes, and she's amazing. She's a little older, and I have been with her since I was a teenager. And she taught me how to paint like old masters. She taught me all of the beautiful, all the beautiful knowledge, right? She is amazing, and I've been working with her for a really, really long time. But you know, on my own, I really felt like I wanted to find my own voice as a painter, so I picked up acrylic about 5 years ago. And you would think a lot of the things translate, but surprisingly enough, they're actually incredibly different. Like super, super, super different. Okay, so I'm just putting down a base. So hope you can kind of see it. Let's see. Elizabeth Yank, are you able to get to the second layer? I hope you're getting into the second layer. I hope your first layer wasn't too wet. And now you can kind of go right in. But I found that even if the painting is a little wet, you can go and do all of this. Sometimes that actually might even be advantageous. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to put a little bit of red and some umber into the corner. I hope you guys can kind of see it. Okay, and if any given point you feel a bit distracted by where like the pictures are on the screen, just let me know and I can kind of move them around a little bit. Okay. All right, so I'm going to take this Cerulean. And you know, I would say a lot of my colors are a bit, like I'm suggesting them. Like you can use any kind of blue really. You can honestly use any kind of blue for this. You can use any kind of red, you can throw in some pink. I don't think that this is a lot of rules. So I'm going to take a little bit of the Cerulean, tap it in with this Ultramarine, and I'm just going to start brushing back and forth with the same brush. I haven't changed my brush. Hello, Jen Jen. Okay, just going back and forth, and back and forth. I'm going to go right into my Cerulean. My Cerulean's not great. I might switch it up and use a different paint because I don't know if this paint's great. But, oh, so actually it's okay. I'm just kind of brushing it in. And I'm kind of, at the same time, I'm also, every time I kind of, you can see these brush strokes, I'm also blotting my paintbrush on a rag, and then I'm going to start to soften some of this by kind of going back and forth. It's great. Awesome. It's looking a little bit better. And already you can kind of see like the space is changing, right? I'm kind of hoping for you guys the space is changing. So I always wanted to go to space because, you know, I'm not afraid of heights. Like I'm kind of afraid of water. I'm not a great swimmer. I'm kind of, okay, I'm also kind of taking this Cerulean and going into the Ultramarine. I'm not a great swimmer because I'm from New York City and I didn't quite learn how to swim. But I love the idea of going up into the sky. And like I'm not terribly afraid of heights, so I'm like, oh, maybe space would be okay. Maybe I won't be so afraid of going to space. What are the things that you didn't like about oil painting? No, I love oil painting. Oh, no. I love oil painting. I just didn't feel like when I was going into a brand new set of work, like for myself, and I wanted, you know, sometimes when you transition from one subject into the other, you want to try out, you want to take that along, the idea of trying something brand new along with you. And I thought, okay, I'm kind of go into something completely different now. Maybe I should, while I do that, bring along another medium. So I never left behind oil paint. I still oil paint. I just wanted to transition my artwork and basically start from square one again. Like I wanted to be, you know, when sometimes you're really good at something or when you feel really comfortable with something, you tend to be kind of lazy, or maybe you kind of like go back on the same habits. So I picked up acrylic paint because I had never done it before. I'd never done it before 5 years ago. Really, not really. Like a little bit, but not really. Like not seriously. So I picked up acrylic to basically scare myself a little bit, kind of wake myself up a little bit. And it was kind of awesome. And it was so different, and they're so different from each other. I thought I could bring about a lot of these principles into acrylic that I knew from oils, and honestly, some of it really just doesn't translate. And I kind of thought that was kind of interesting. Oh, somebody's asking me, maybe you should try skydiving. I have gone skydiving. It's kind of awesome. It was kind of fun. Not what you think it's going to be. I mean, I didn't do it by myself because when you first skydive, you're not allowed to do it on your own. Oh, I'm gonna move these boxes, okay? So you guys can see me better. You can see what I'm doing a little bit better. I'm gonna move this over here. Sorry, I hope it's not too disruptive when I do that, but I felt like you can't see what I'm doing. I'm gonna do that. And I moved my dialog box. I'm sorry, guys. Okay, so I'm gonna do that. And I'm going to do this so you guys can see me just a little bit better, okay? Is that better? Oh, you love watercolors. Yeah, but acrylic, but never have tried oil paints. Oil paints are very different. Oil paints are incredibly different. Artist Network definitely has a lot of amazing oil painting videos that you guys can check out. A lot of, like, I think they do a lot of beginner and a lot of, like, I mean, the oil painters on Artist Network are pretty great. So yeah, I mean, I think that sometimes you want to learn a new language to tell a different story. And that's kind of how I felt. I wanted to learn a new language to tell a different story. And it was kind of scary, actually, because I didn't think I was going to be good at it. And now, but somehow here I am sharing it with you guys and painting with you, you know? So, you know, you never know. And you should definitely, Rashmi, you should definitely try oil paint. It can be really fun. Like it's a completely different animal than acrylic in a surprising way. I'm gonna go into my red and I'm gonna go and blot it up here. Oh yeah, I don't know how many of you guys have skydived. I mean, it's kind of funny. They never let you skydive on your own first. because that would be nuts. You are strapped onto somebody who does the jumps about 100 times a day with other people and who have probably skydived a million times. And the person they strapped me on had skydived like hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of times. And he was amazing. And he talked me through the entire time. And honestly, I would say if you guys don't feel comfortable doing it, don't do it. Like, I felt like it was something that I had always wanted to do. So I went. It was kind of cool. I'm going to go into my Cerulean. I don't know if my Cerulean is amazing. I think I might ditch it and use something else. But I have this random Cerulean in my home studio. And it's not Utrecht like the other paints. And it's not mixing super well with this paint right now. But maybe it's okay. Yeah, I understand. I'm scared to try oils. You know what? It's just painting. Painting's not scary. You know, it's just not. It's not super scary. Like the worst that can happen is like you're not good at it right away, which is whatever, you know? Like who needs to be good at something right away? Like there's no challenge in that, right? I mean, although if you're really great at something right away, that's kind of magical and amazing, and I kind of hope that you are really good at it right away. Okay, here we go. Hello, Amani. Thank you. I'm just going back and forth, and I'm going to go take a little bit more of the Cerulean, no matter how funny it is, and brush up. And now this is all getting kind of wet, so I think I'm going to leave that alone right now. I have this like strange Cerulean that is not drying as fast as everything else, but that's okay. So as I said, this is kind of like an abstract painting, right? Oh, hi from Romania. Holy cow, Romania. Are you a painter, T? T Miko? Okay, I'm going to, let's see. I'm going to add a little bit of cobalt because if you don't have cobalt, it's okay. I'm just going to add a little bit of cobalt because I don't like the way my Cerulean looks. And that's okay. Sometimes, as I said, you guys can use any kind of blues. You could throw some pinks in here. It's great. Oh, being great right away is not an issue here with me. It's okay. You know what? Like, I love getting better at something is pretty astonishing, right? Like, you know, when you do something a few times and then suddenly you're suddenly good at it, it's so strange. Like, I used to take dance classes, and I swear the first time I took my dance class, I was so bad at it that I left the classroom crying. But then I went back the next week, and then I went back for almost 4 years. I went back like twice a week for 4 years. Because sometimes like not being good at something can be really emotional and overwhelming, you know? And I don't want you to feel emotional or overwhelmed during this class, but hey, you'll be by yourself. Like, I can't see you. You can cry if you want. I think it's totally okay. If you want to cry during this class, totally okay. If painting is a emotional experience for you, totally all right. So I'm taking a little bit of this ochre, and mixing it in with the umber. And I'm going back, and I'm just creating this like demarcated area. So a little bit better now that I moved my dialogue box. I hope that helps a little bit, like a picture of me. I might move it back at some point, not to disorient you guys too much. Okay, I'm going to go back into this red, and I haven't cleaned my brush. Just showing you guys. I haven't quite cleaned my brush after the blue. Like, I cleaned my brush after the blue, but not so much now. And I'm going into the red. And I'm just doing this. There we go. Let's see, going back. I'm just blotting it. I'm just doing this. I still haven't changed my brush. I'm still using the same brush. I'm gonna go into my ochre. And maybe I should add a little bit of white to that. How about that, guys? A little bit of ochre, a little bit of this red. As I said, there's a lot of room for like basically just kind of doing a gesture drawing over this. I mean, I want you guys to stay loose during this painting process because this is like a really fun one. I like teaching this one because I can kind of, I feel like I can like, I have more mental space to talk to you guys while I do this because this is a little bit more gestural than anything else. Add a little bit of ochre. I'm gonna go back here. Let's see. So already, and we're gonna go over this again. So if it looks really mottled right now, it's okay because we're gonna paint it again. And it's really, really important to think about doing acrylic paint in layers. That's why we're going from dark to light. And this class is basically about luminosity and how to make things look bright, you know, make things sparkly. I'm gonna add a little bit, take the red and put that right into that ochre and go back. And this is not gonna look exactly like the photograph. It might even look exactly like my sample picture because it doesn't matter. Because this is, we're not painting anything super hyper representational like an animal, you know, where we have to get all the proportions right. You don't have to get the proportions right of space. So I got this picture from the NASA website, and that was pretty great. Like, I think this is taken with the Hubble telescope. As I said, I always wanted to go to space. And I love the NASA website, NASA, the NASA website, because all the pictures are public domain because it's paid for by the government, right? All the research. And it's like taxpayer funded. So you can go onto that site and like grab pictures. And that's kind of great. Okay, so it's a little bit more. Can you put your brush tip next to a finger so we see how, oh yeah. It's about the size of my finger, but I have really small hands. This is a number 10. It doesn't, for some reason, when I bought it, because it was probably on clearance, they wiped out what kind it is, but this is a Filbert. It's a number 10, and it's about the size of my finger, my fingernail. You see? Yeah, so I have like these smaller ones. We're not using the smaller ones. We're using a fairly biggish one, so you can kind of feel like you're doing like a gesture painting. So if you want to take a minute and switch out your brush, totally okay too. Okay. Of course. Okay, I'm going to go back into the red, and I'm going to just add a little bit more over here. I'm going to grab a little bit of white, mix that in a little bit with this red. And remember, my colors and yours may not look exactly the same depending on how you're painting. I'm going to make this a little pink. Okay, so now this is going to be pink. And sometimes I kind of turn my brush. So right now this is pretty dry. You see I'm touching it. So this painting is dry. I can put my whole hand on it. Don't get anything on it. So I'm just going to start to paint over this part. So I'm using a technique called dry brushing. So dry brushing is when you put some paint on it and you're just kind of, you know, like dry, like it's like, it feels like you're putting dry. It's just dry. My paintbrush isn't wet. I haven't added any water to it, so that's like dry brushing. There we go. And I'm doing that, but then I'm also, when I start adding more paint to it, like meaning like the brush gets more wet, then it's just like regular painting. But right now I'm doing some dry brush techniques. So sometimes I like to do things like motions like this, you know, and right now I'm doing little motions like that. And see, it's kind of softening this up a little bit. So I'm going to go back in a little bit of white into the red. There we go. It's going to be pink. And I'm going to just make this cloud, or these kind of space clouds. If anybody knows what they're called, please let me know. Hi. Hello, Celine from the Netherlands. Welcome. Let's see. Go. I'm going to add a little bit more white. It's kind of looking pink, but that's okay. Hey, maybe we'll have pink space. And some of this is wet, so I'm going to leave that part alone because I'm painting over too much of it. I am going to take, my brush is still wet. Okay, so my brush is still like a little bit, can you repeat about dry brushing? Dry brush versus well, dry brush means there's not a lot of paint, not no paint. So dry brushing means, so right now I don't have very much paint on this. So when I do this, you see how it looks like it's kind of like I'm scratching at the surface. You see how it does that? But when I put a lot of paint, which is kind of just like regular painting, it's opaque, right? So that's with, oh, sorry, that's like more paint looks like that. And dry brushing means, like right now I have paint, so I'm gonna wipe off some of this excess paint, and that's dry brushing, when there isn't very much paint. Okay, does that make sense? If you need that explained again, I'll explain it again. But for now, so like when I'm just doing regular painting, I load my brush up with paint and it feels wet. And then I am painting right over this. So in a lot of ways, it's kind of like more opaque or translucent. And when you're dry brushing, it means there's not a lot of paint. Like, see right now, I'm just doing a little bit of paint on the tip of my brush. And I'm doing this. So it looks like it's kind of feathering on top of the surface. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? So are you blending what is on the surface? I'm not blending anything because the whole paint's dry. So nothing is blending with each other. So I'm basically just painting on the surface, if that makes any sense. So basically I'm building up layers. So we're building up, we're building up, we're building up. So I'm doing one layer at a time, and if I'm sometimes I'm using some dry brushing to kind of just create texture. So a lot of the clouds are like kind of like translucent and feathery. Yeah, so that's what I'm using for it. So I am going to now take a little bit of this blue. I'm using cobalt. You guys can use the cerulean. I'm also going to still use a little bit of cerulean. It's just that my cerulean is weird, so I'm not going to use the cerulean as much. So I'm going to take my blue. I'm going to put a little bit of white into it and a little bit of Payne's gray. And I haven't cleaned my brush yet, so that's also funny. So I'm going to just brush on the side. And then, so right now I still have plenty of paint, so I'm just doing regular painting. And when I start running out of paint, it's going to look a little bit more dry. And you'll notice that as you kind of like go along when you're painting. Like at some point, you're going to end up dry brushing because you run out of paint. So like right now I'm running out of paint on my brush, so it looks more like this. Like it almost looks like I'm scratching at the surface. But already, doesn't that look kind of cool? Looks kind of like space. I'm going to take some more of this blue, and I'm just going to start to do some covering up. Add a little bit of white to that, to this cobalt or the cerulean, whatever you prefer or whatever you have. Honestly, any blue, as I said. And I'm just going to start filling in. So sometimes I throw down paint onto the surface, and then I wipe my brush, and then I go back and I start to move it around and blend it a little bit. You see? I'm going to do that again for you guys. I'm going to add a little bit of paint. I'm going to model a little bit here. And while this is wet, right, I'm going to wipe off my brush and then use that and then start to move that around to just soften. And I do that basically like by going like almost like this. So I'm softening and I'm softening and I'm just moving it around. Okay, I'm going to go back to the cerulean. And I'm just going to start lightening up some areas. Okay. So the whole point of this exercise is how to go from really dark and then create spots where it looks like soft and spacey, right? I'm going to go back to this blue. I'm going to use a little bit more of my ultramarine, which I keep running out of. I love ultramarine, actually. It's one of my favorite colors. Ultramarine and my Payne's gray is amazing. I actually was reading the back of my Payne's gray, and I know this seems like an obvious thing to know, but it turns out that if you mix ultramarine and black, that's what makes Payne's gray. Duh, of course. And it's funny, I don't know if you guys ever look at the back of your paint, but I don't always do that. And sometimes I look at it and I go, oh, of course. It's so obvious. So I'm going to take some of this ultramarine. take some Payne's Gray and mix it up a little bit. And I want to just sort of add some more blue this way. Oh, sorry, that's not enough. I'm just going to go right into the Ultramarine and just start to create some atmosphere this way. And also, you know, like just like clouds, I like to kind of keep some contours of like something that's kind of cloud-like. And there we go. And I'm going to soften that. And then I'm going to go back into my cobalt or the cerulean and just sort of clean up that edge. I'm going to add a little bit more white to that blue. And I'm just going to start to soften some of these edges. And I'm going to go into the white again. My brush, I haven't cleaned my brush yet. I'm going to wipe that off a little bit. And we're just going to create some light spots here. Isn't that already so pretty? What is the biggest challenge with acrylics? Oh, so that I'd say is going to be different for everybody. But I think what I've mostly been told by people who don't like acrylic or who find it challenging, maybe not like it, but just challenging, is that it dries really fast. For me, I love it. I mean, for everybody, like you're going to find that there's all sorts of challenges with acrylic paint on your own terms, just like anything else, right? Like watercolors sometimes can be hard to control. Oil paints can take a longer time to dry, and everyone's going to have their own like thing with it, right? So I'm just going to lighten up this area. Like the first thing I learned when I did acrylic was that I accepted the fact that they dry fast. Once you accept certain things, once you accept it, like it's no longer a limitation, like you build it into your learning, right? Okay, I'm going to go back into my ultramarine, add a little bit of red. Like I think that's like that with anything. Like once you learn how to learn like anything, then it becomes a little bit easier, and it's not so much a challenge as so much that you build it into the aspects. So I'm making this kind of like purple with the blue, like the ultramarine, and the red, and a little bit of white, and I'm just gonna lighten up these areas. So already, doesn't this kind of look cool? I think it looks pretty cool. I'm gonna go back into my white and brush up this way. Like I think generally, if you have any sort of basic knowledge of painting, you basically just sort of go over that hurdle every single time you like learn something new. Like you know how if you know how to basically mix colors, then you know that in a lot of ways those principles still kind of translate between all the different mediums. And then it's just a matter of like finding out the quirks, right? Okay, I'm going to go back into the white, and I haven't cleaned my brush yet. I don't even know if I'm going to clean my brush anytime soon. So put a little bit of this color, and I'm just going to brush up a little bit more white. And I'm not using a lot of paint. Like I don't load my brush with paint. I mean, there's definitely paint on my brush, but it's not tons of paint. Like I'm basically, you see that I'm kind of working in layers, and this paint is still kind of wet, and I'm going to dry brush a little bit here. But I hope you guys kind of see how there's so much room for like whatever during this, right? Like I like that room for whatever. Like this still looks like it's spacey, right? And I'm going to use that same color and kind of go this way and just sort of live out my Bob Ross dreams and paint kind of like clouds, right? Actually, when I was first asked to do this, I was like, oh, I get to live out my Bob Ross dreams. You know, I get to teach people how to paint, and I hope that a lot of you are like gonna paint later, just because. Like when I was a kid, I watched him. I was really little when I was watching him as a kid. I watched him every morning, and then I would go into my backyard and start painting. And when I was asked to do the show, I thought, wow, this is great, because it's a lot of power to kind of influence people to make things, right? Like even for those of you guys who are not painting now, like I didn't paint along with Bob Ross. I didn't even have oil paint when I was a kid. But afterwards, I went home and I painted. You know, like I was at home and I painted with my mom. Like I went into the backyard and I painted with her. And I did that all morning long after the show. I mean, I didn't have oil paint. right? I mean, how many little girls have like a whole set of oil paint at that age? Like, definitely, I know I didn't. So I'm taking a little bit of this ultramarine and I'm brushing it this way, but isn't that super cool, like already? Okay, I'm gonna take a little bit more white. Going back. Okay, that's kind of cool. I'm gonna go over here. I'm gonna add a little bit of this red. I haven't cleaned my brush yet because I want all these colors to kind of mix in with each other. But how cool is that so far, right? How are your paintings coming, guys? Let me know how your progress is. I wish I can see it. You know, the funny thing about teaching online is that you don't get to see everything when it's happening, and that has been a bit of a challenge for me because sometimes I just want to like look. I just want to see what you guys are doing. I wish I could see it right away. Actually, last week, some people actually tagged me in their posts so I can see what they do. So if you do that, that would be kind of awesome because then I can see more of what you guys do. Like sometimes if you guys have Instagram, that would be really fun. If you guys have progress pictures, like you guys can Instagram and show me. You know, my Instagram is just my name, Gigi Chen, but .art. And then I've had classes where in the middle of a class, people have shown it to me. And while I'm like taking breaks in the class, like people are tagging me on their Instagram and they're showing me how it's going, and it's kind of awesome. Like I've taught some like drawing classes, and especially during now, like it's pretty much all remote learning. And I've done some remote teaching, and maybe we're taking a break in the class, and then somebody will tag me, and it's kind of cool. So I really want to see what you guys do, and also like you have to. I really want you guys to post. I really want you guys to post on this page for the show, like the show page on Artist Network. I want to see what you guys do because especially this one, I kind of really want to see how you guys are doing. So okay, I'm going into the white and a little bit of this blue. I'm just kind of add a little bit. I'm kind of curious about how you guys do with this one because in a lot of ways, this is so just kind of, I always think of this as like a hangout painting because like you can kind of do anything with it. Okay, I'm going to go into, I'm going to clean my brush now because I want to go into the red. Hi, Betty. Yeah, I'm new. I'm drawing this right now. Oh, yeah, I love that you're drawing this right now, Betty. Are you also painting or are you drawing? Okay. Oh yeah, so actually there's also on Facebook actually some people have been posting on the Facebook. So that would also be awesome, you know? Like I kind of like that too. There's no Facebook page dedicated to the show, but on the Facebook they'll like sometimes bring up the show and then people have been posting underneath. So that was pretty great. But there's also a place where I think they just put it up, a place where you can share your paintings. But yeah, I want to see what you guys do because I'm kind of curious, especially given that some of you guys have been coming back every week for this show. So I'm going to go into the red. I'm going to go into the red and a little bit of this umber, and I'm going to just go this way. I'm going to demarcate areas like this. So like anything else, I think it's important to build up your layers. It's building up your layers because then there's a little bit more to it rather than just kind of painting and adding a bunch of stars, right? Like I want you guys to learn how to build up layers. Okay. I didn't take a lot of formal painting classes when I was in school. My high school was an art school, but we didn't do a lot of oil painting. I think I took one semester of oil painting, one semester of printmaking and stuff like that. But we didn't, I mean, when you're a teenager, when you're 16, like I don't know how much, I think there is some, unless like I was not a painting prodigy at 16. So I didn't really, I mean, I took the classes, I wasn't so great about it, but I really didn't learn how to do, I'm just using red right now. I didn't really learn how to do oil painting until I was like 19, 18, almost 20. You know, and then I was working with an artist. So I didn't actually learn how to paint in a super formal place. which is why it's very interesting to teach, because I'm basically teaching by gut, you know? Are you building up in loose or order from, so I generally am working from dark to light. So if you, I don't know when you showed up for the class, but in the very beginning, I just painted a lot of dark space, and I'm building up layers right now. I'm building up colors. So I'm building up, oh, I'm gonna add some more red. I'm basically just building up like from dark to light. So it's always gonna be layers. It's always gonna be one phase at a time. Okay. Okay. Great, so I'm gonna go into the red. Yeah, so teaching, you know, it's funny because now I'm sort of teaching by gut, and I'm kind of teaching based on what I tell myself that I need to do as I'm painting. You know, when I worked with these artists, they would show me some things and I would watch them paint. And honestly, I learned more from watching them paint. And it was pretty great. Oh, thank you, Timiko. That's really nice of you. I kind of want, this looks hard. You can drop it. Betty, you know what would be actually really fun? Do you have like oil pastels? Because if you have oil pastels, I bet you can do this too. Or if you have like regular dry pastels, this would be really fun to do in dry pastels too. But like on dark paper, like if you don't paint, you know, like that's what I would do. Or even color pencils would be really fun to do this in. So I love color pencils. Actually, I do a lot of color pencil drawings, and I do a lot of ballpoint pen drawings. So I'm just taking red. I'm just building this up. And still, like, it doesn't look super formal yet, right? Does it? I'm going to let that part dry. I'm going to go over here. And I'm just still building up layers. And right now I kind of want to work over here too. So I'm going to take some more Umber because I'm running out of Umber. Oh, Rashmi is doing this on like a large screen. I love it. The painting is going to look bigger. I mean, my painting is 8 by 10, so it's not even that big, because I wanted to be able to finish something with you in which it wasn't going to take all day. So I'm going to take this brown, add a little bit. Actually, I'm just going to take this brown. And I put too much paint, so I'm just going to wipe it down. And I'm just going to do this. Like, I'm just sort of very quickly creating. I just want to add some red ground here. So I'm using brown, and I'm just going to add, just going to give this place, breaking up some of this black a little bit. Breaking up this black, and taking this brown, still breaking up the black background, and I'm just sort of swirling it in. Oh, dropped something. A little bit of this brown, and see, now already you can kind of see. I'm going to have to move me again. And then I'm going to take a little bit of this red and go over some of that. Not too much. I'm just blending this together. This way. Oh yes, please, Betty, I want you to rewatch it. And you know, sometimes I really like to do something with a lot of different materials. Sometimes I paint the same thing with a lot of different things. Like sometimes I draw it first. Like I actually do a lot of drawings for my paintings first, because I feel that painting is there's a lot more time invested for me. I mean, everybody's different, right? For me, I invest more time painting than I do drawing, just because I'm more natural at it. So sometimes I do drawings and then I do the paintings, just to sort of prepare myself. Because for me, it's hard for me to break up ideas and shapes always in my head right away. for me, it's like, you know, everybody learns a little bit differently. Like I like to do something a bunch of times before I really understand it. Like I like to read something several times before I understand it. And maybe that's just like, it's just my personality. When I was in school, I had to read things a lot for me to understand it. It's not a good thing or a bad thing, you know. But for me, like before I do a painting, I like to understand it by drawing it first. Actually, I've never drawn space. Maybe I should try to draw it. I mean, I've only just painted space because maybe for me, painting space makes more sense. Okay, so now it kind of looks pretty cool, right? It's like kind of getting there. Oh, you mix markers and color pencil? Oh yeah, I love that. I love mixing a wet medium with a color pencil. I actually do a lot of watercolors and color pencil because I'm not an amazing watercolor painter. You know, like sometimes you kind of get around with what you don't know, right? Okay, so I'm gonna go, I clean my brush, I'm wiping it down, making sure it's dry, and I'm gonna go right back into this blue, either blue, any of the blues are fine, and I'm just gonna start to paint right into this area, right over here. A little bit of blue, painting this way. Okay. Go. This is so much fun for me. I like really enjoy doing this because every time I do it, I'm always like, oh yeah, this is looking like something. I'm gonna take some of this blue and take some red and make this kind of purple, add a little bit of white, tiny bit of white. Right now at this point, anytime you add white, it's gonna automatically pop off, right? See? Any kind of white just pops off this canvas, pops off the surface. So I'm just gonna go follow these directions, add a little bit more white so you can see it. Oh, I got some yellow in that. That's okay. It doesn't matter if there's a little yellow in that. As I said, there's kind of not a lot of rules for this painting. Are you guys having a good time? You guys understanding what's happening? Kind of looks like an animal, the nose and the chin. Oh, it kind of does. Do you guys know what that's called? You know, when you see a face in something? It's called pareidolia. I actually wrote an article for Artist Network about it. It's when you look in the clouds and you can see animals, or when you look at a car and you see a face. So that's called pareidolia. And I love that. Sometimes I do drawings based on pareidolia. It's kind of a fun thing because you're kind of using your full imagination to imagine one thing into another, and that can be kind of a fun thing to do. It's like a whole other thing. Oh, thank you, Elizabeth. I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see your painting. I'm really excited. Okay. Hi, Jan. How are you? I'm going to add already a little bit of white. I'm going to create that ultramarine, a little bit of red. Sometimes I don't mix enough paint. And I'm just going to start to see. So this class is about luminosity. This is about like building layers in order to make things look shimmery. So already, this is kind of great, right? Like already I'm adding just a little bit of white stuff, just a little bit of white mixed in to any of this paint automatically makes everything bright and glistening. So that's pretty cool, right? Already. So don't forget, like down below is a link for abstract painting techniques that Artist Network has a free ebook for you guys if you want to check that out. And some of these principles maybe will be brought into that as well. I'm going to add a little bit of black. Add a little bit of black. And I'm going to add a little bit of this. I haven't cleaned my brush yet. I'm going right into my Payne's Gray, a little bit of white. And I'm going to go into this area. bit. Okay, going into the red. There we go. And also try to tag Artist Network because I think they're going to want to see what you guys are doing, you know? And definitely like there's like that, as there's no show page on Facebook for us, but there is an Artist Network page. And they do talk about my show on it, and that's also a great place. But you guys have a link. They put up a link for you to share your work afterwards, which I really want to see. Okay, so I'm still just using this purple red and kind of going around the space. Honestly, I'm barely looking at the picture. I'm looking at my painting, but I'm also not really looking at the picture anymore. I'm just sort of going with it. So I'm going to clean my brush. I'm going to take a sip of water. Okay, everybody's doing okay over here? Okay. So I'm going to go and let's start working back over here, right? I'm going to take this umber and start to just kind of brush in. Actually, this umber is a little bright. I'm going to add a little bit of white to it, a tiny bit of white. And I'm going to blot it on my rag. Hi Quad, how are you? Thanks for joining us. There we go, a little bit more white. I'm going to add a little bit of brown to that, a little umber. Kind of make it not so yellow. And I'm just going to brush in. And since you're layering over it, you can still kind of see the pink that I have there. Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad, Jean. I'm glad that you're just hanging out. You don't have to be chatting, you know, but it's nice that you get to say hi. I'm gonna add a little bit of this cadmium orange and mix it in a little bit with the white, and I'm gonna go use that a little bit over here. Just kind of loosen up these colors. It's already coming together, right? We're kind of only an hour in, really. I'm going to mix in a little bit of this red and this orange, and I'm just going to start to, sometimes I use my finger to blend, also something. So the whole thing is kind of, I'm not using a lot of paint, so this part I'm kind of mostly doing a lot of dry brushing. Okay, then I'm going to go into the white. I'm going to mix in a little bit of this cadmium, now into the ochre. I'm going to ochre and some umber. I'm going to make this very strange little tan color, and I'm going to brush and lighten up these areas. Already kind of cool, right? Gonna take my little bit more white and just gonna brighten this part up just a little bit. I have not changed my brush. I'm still using the same Filbert. But if you feel like you don't want to do that, you can change up your brush. It's just taking a little bit of white. And maybe add a little tiny, I want to just add a tiny bit of medium into that, just to kind of loosen up the paint a little bit. Because sometimes when there's, even if you have a little bit of paint on your brush, you add a little bit of medium, you can immediately make it a little bit wet, which is easier to work with. So I'm going to add a little bit more white and just sort of lighten that up a little bit. Hello, hello from Poland. Hello, hello from the Caribbean. Hello to the Caribbean. Hello. Thanks for showing up. A little bit of white and kind of going ahead. Add a little bit of medium into that. Okay, so I've used a little bit of medium. As I said, if you don't have medium, it's okay. Add a tiny bit of water, but only if you want to move your paint around a little bit more. I just felt like I want my paint to move around a little bit more. I'm going to, I'm just going to wipe off my brush. I'm not going to clean it. I'm going to use a little bit of this Umber, add a tiny bit of white, a little bit of red, and I'm just going to start moving around this area. You know, the magical touches are going to be the end when we start doing the stars, and that's going to be really fun. So, okay, a little bit of this orange, and I'm going to, and that part, when I show you guys how to make the stars, it's going to blow your mind. I promise. Okay, no, I don't promise, but rather it's going to be pretty cool. Okay, I'm adding a little bit of this Umber into this red mixture. I'm just going to go. So as I said, there's no real rules to how you use these colors. I'm just telling you guys what I'm using. Like, you guys can make this whole thing pink. That would be fun. We should do one where I just make the whole thing pink, and then that will be really fun. I'm adding a little bit of this red over here just to kind of break up the space. Sometimes it's just nice, like sometimes if there are areas where I'm like, oh, I didn't work on this enough, I just go back. I'm going to go back to this white and ochre. I'm going to go over this. I still have not cleaned my brush. I haven't cleaned my brush in a while. I'm going over this. Going over that. Okay, so that's a little bit wet. I'm going to leave that alone. I am going to clean my brush now. You don't have to. Oh, nice. You're in Jamaica. I've never been to Jamaica. Oh, Uruguay. Hi. Hello, Patty. Hello, Patty from Uruguay. I'm going to take a little bit of this blue and a little bit of this Payne's gray. All this blue, Payne's gray. And I'm just going to start working over here. Maybe a tiny, 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 tiny bit of white. Mix that in. A little bit of this cobalt or the cerulean. And just to kind of like break up this space a little bit. It's looking pretty cool, right, guys? Like, it's kind of surprising. I mean, I think whenever I paint space, it's a bit surprising for me. I don't know about you guys. How many of you guys have painted space before? I'm going to take a little bit of this Payne's gray and this, a little bit of this cobalt. Just kind of work. I'm going to go right into the cobalt, go right into the cerulean, and kind of add another layer here. A little bit of the white. Actually, I'm going to add a little bit of white to that. And just start to give that a little bit of something. Isn't it fun how very quickly this comes together? It's kind of cool. I'm going into the cobalt or the cerulean, if you guys have cerulean, just to kind of give that, break up that space a little bit. Add a little bit of white. I'm going to go right into the white a little bit with my dirty brush. And wipe that down a little bit, and I'm just going to start to break up some of this space. Yeah, this reference is pretty great. If you guys go to the NASA website, you can see all sorts of things. And I always look at that site because I think it's amazing. As I said, I love space. I've always wanted to go to space. So whenever I look at those pictures, I'm just agog by how amazing everything is. It's amazing also that we can take pictures of those things at this point in our history as people, that we can see space. Okay, I'm going into, yeah, and for those of you guys who are just joining, if you want to ever paint along, you can always see this later after the live stream. If you go down below to the show notes, you're going to see where all of my reference pictures are, and you can download, and hopefully you'll paint with us in the future. Oh, hello. Hello, Dubai. Hello. From Dubai. That's amazing. I'm going to add a little bit of... So much traveling I want to do in my life. I'm going to take a little bit of this white, a little bit of this ultramarine, go back into this like mess of colors I've created. I don't have a whole lot of order in my palette. I'm going to take a little bit more of this white, and I'm just going to go over some of this. So it's kind of like clouds, a little bit like clouds. Like that. Oh, Marilyn's great. You love to paint space. Have you done a lot of paintings of space? I'm going to take some of this brown and some of that red, and I'm just going to go back into some of this and lighten this up a little bit. Add a little bit of white into that brown, and just going to start to create some more space here. Everything kind of blends in with each other sometimes, and that's kind of nice. As I said, there's not a lot of rules to what this is supposed to look like. You don't even follow all the colors that I'm doing. A little bit of the cadmium into that white, and go back into the white, into that cadmium. I'm just going to go right into with some white. My brush is still dirty, so I'm just going to go into the white. And I'm just going to go. I'm not using a lot of paint. In fact, I'm just going to paint until all the paint is gone from my brush. I'm just going to dot that in. Isn't that kind of cool? Like, you don't have to do a lot, you know? You're just choosing where you're going to make it bright. And that's what's amazing. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow. It's kind of amazing about doing this is that you can kind of go as you please. Like, if you were like, oh, I want this part to be lighter, like almost looking at the reference is just like a guide, right? You don't have to do exactly what's there unless you really want to, which I'm totally okay with that, but I'm not doing that. I'm just giving that to you guys as a guide. I'm taking a little bit of this red, and I haven't cleaned my brush yet. I'm just going to start to brush that part in. There we go. Isn't that great? Like, you just do this, and it looks like it's a little galaxy. Is that kind of cool? I'm going to muddle some of that down. I'm going to wipe off my brush so I can just dry brush. So dry brushing is not using a lot of paint, and you're just kind of like brushing onto the surface. Brushing what's on your brush so it's kind of dry. So you can see it's kind of like feathery because you're doing that. Okay, I'm going to take a little bit of this really weird cerulean that I have, and I'm just going to add a little bit of white to that and a little bit of Payne's gray and make that. I just want to turn this part down a little bit. Okay. Let's see. Looking pretty cool, right? I'm going to wash my brush because I want to. And okay, I'm going to add a little bit of ultramarine in the corner right here. Oh, and I'm there now. Okay, I'm going to add a little bit of this gray that I made. I'm going to put it over here a little bit, just kind of brighten this part up. A little bit more white into this mixture. Just blending and brushing. Oh, that's great. I'm so glad that you're learning how to feather edges. Yes, yes, yes. And while it's a little bit wet, you can just kind of, move it around. And I would say you can use that blending technique when the paint's a little bit wet. Like acrylics dry faster, so you don't always get to see that. Like you don't always get to move your paint around, but whenever your paint's just a little bit wet, it's really nice to be able to move it around just a little bit. So I'm adding a little bit more white. I'm just like dry brushing. Oh, I love that people are learning during this class. Yes, learning. I hope you guys are learning. Okay, I'm adding a little bit of white, a little bit of this pink, and I'm just gonna add a little bit more white to that. Okay. Just gonna do a little bit of dry brushing to the side. Oh my God, are we ready for stars yet? I'm gonna take this like cerulean, mix a little bit of white and just sort of a little bit of white with the cerulean cobalt situation. And just see already like some parts are just like really, really cool. Isn't that really awesome? It's kind of fun. Oh, Betty, hello, welcome back. Okay, adding a little bit of this. Okay, I'm just gonna clean my brush and then I'm gonna go into certain parts and then I think we should start painting stars. Are you guys ready to paint some stars? Or maybe you guys just want to take a minute and catch up a little bit, I think that this is a little bright. I'm gonna turn this down just a little bit, just to see if it's a little bit better. You can kind of see what's happening a little bit better. I'm going to go into the ochre with a little bit of white. And I'm going to brighten up parts of this a little bit. I'm dry brushing, or rather I'm not dry brushing so much as I'm sort of gliding my paint onto the surface a little bit. And some of it is going to be dry. And it's going to move some of that around. And I want this part to be a little bit lighter. We'll go right into the regular, a little bit of yellow, maybe a little bit of ochre, a little bit of umber. And so you see the buildup of the colors. So my brush has all sorts of colors on it. So I'm just kind of using what's on the brush. So that's kind of cool. I'm going to soften up this area a little bit. I'm going to add a little bit of this umber onto my brush and I'm just going to soften up. I don't love that there's like a big kind of gap here. And I'm going to create some red, some Payne's gray. I'm just going to start to do a little bit of that white and there, just softening up these parts a little bit. And then we're going to start making stars. You guys want to paint some stars? Are you guys ready? Want to give it a second? I'll let you guys catch up a little bit. Then we'll paint some stars together. Or rather, if you guys are still doing a lot of stuff. Whew, okay, let's take a minute. That was a lot. Doing this was like it was really fun. I'm actually going to take a little bit of, on my brush, I'm going to take a little bit of medium and sort of just like go over some of this a little bit. I have some paint on my brush and I'm just going to kind of take down some of these craters a little bit. Because sometimes things are just a little bit dark. And a little bit of ochre. Yeah, sometimes when things look a little bit funny to me, I like go in with a brush with a little bit of any kind of paint really with this and a little bit of medium, and I just kind of try to fix any parts that look funny to me. Not that it has to look like anything really, but sometimes certain parts just, you know, like I want it to look like other things. Okay, so it looks pretty loose. It's kind of cool, right? We're gonna start to, so we're gonna switch brushes now. Are we ready to switch brushes? Like we've been using the same brush forever. I'm gonna move me over a little bit because I want us to start thinking about what everything looks like in the darker area. Okay, so let's take a small brush. We're going to take a small round brush. I'm trying to decide which brush to use. Let's see. This one might be tricky. Actually, this one's not so great. Let me find a brush. I don't know if this is going to be great, but I'm going to try this one. So I'm using I can't really tell what it is. I'm using a round brush. It's kind of a short round brush, so it's not too big. It's not super tiny. It's almost kind of like a fat round brush. But what I'm looking for you guys to do really is to find a brush that you feel comfortable with putting dots on the surface. Okay, so I'm going to take a little bit, I'm going to take some red, and I'm going to mix it with a little bit of this cadmium orange red, right? And because the cadmium is always thicker and the red is not as thick, so I want something kind of in between. So let me kind of see, like it's pretty good. So I mostly want red, so it's mostly red with this cadmium, but not really. I'm going to blot it, and I'm going to make it so there's just enough paint, meaning that I want you to load up your brush. I want you to load up your brush where you can put a clean dot onto the surface. And if you don't do a clean dot, it's also okay. Don't worry about it. I'm trying to make it so I have enough brush paint on my brush where I can kind of do this. So, okay, so that's a star. And I'm going to do that. That's a star. It doesn't have to look perfect right now, but I'm going to just kind of go in with my orange or with my red. So that's a star. That's a star. So basically painting space is like creating an illusion. You see how this, like I painted kind of like clouds, but it still looks like space. I'm going to, like I want to emphasize the fact that this is like creating an illusion. Okay, so I'm going to use this red orange and just sort of I'm going to add a little bit of white to it. I think it's a little bit. Tiny, 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 tiny bit of white into this red and orange. And I'm just going to start, oh yeah, you can see it better. I'm just going to start demarcating areas like these stars. So each one of these dots I'm making is going to be a star. Okay? Okay? I know it doesn't look like stars yet, but it's going to be stars. I'm going to just wipe off my brush a little bit. There's a little bit too much paint on it. Okay, so let's say we're going to have a bigger star here. I did that. That was an accident, but now it's going to be a star. Okay, I'm going to take that red and just mark off that this is going to be a big star. Okay, and then I'm going to do something here, and that's going to be a star. I think I need to add some more white to this. I'm just going to add a little bit of white into this red and orange mixture. Okay, so I'm loading up my brush, and I'm going to do a dot, and they don't have to be perfect. The dots don't have to be perfect. I'm going to add a little bit more white to this. Okay, so that's a star. That's a star. And so they're all kind of different. That's a star. I'm wondering if I need to change my brush. I think I'm gonna have to change my brush. I don't know if I love this brush. I'm gonna go for a pointier one. Maybe it's a little bit better. I don't know. Let's see. Maybe I should go with this brush. It's a little bit smaller. It's still a round brush. It's a little bit smaller. Okay, so also it's in better condition. That might help. I'm going to take a little bit of this red. All right, I'm going to put a little bit of white in it. I'm going to go right into my red and white mixture. And I'm just going to start to demarcate. That's a star. Sometimes it's a little bit bigger. That's a star. That's a star. We don't have to go crazy. I like the idea of all the stars being close together, like in the picture here. And if it's a good brush, you can kind of just dot it. So I want to make a whole cluster here. A little bit more white to that, just to move it. The red's not very thick, so I want to just give it a little bit more. Okay, so clean my point off, try to wipe off the paint a little bit with my finger. And that's going to be a star right here. So I'm just using red and white and a little bit of the orange. And there's a star. That's a star. That's a star. And if you put too much paint down, just kind of swish it around so it becomes kind of a circle. That's a star. And we're also going to add other colors, but right now we're going to use one color at a time. And that's a star. You can make them all sorts of colors. That's an orange one. Okay, remember you guys can see this video again later if you didn't keep up exactly, or if you're just watching. I want you guys to paint with me. Okay, that's a star, that's a star. Some of these are wet. We're gonna let them, we're not gonna, I'm kind of hovering over my surface, so I'm not touching anything because this whole painting, all these stars are gonna be wet. So, that's a star, that's a star. Okay. A little bit of white to that. Let's add a little bit more white. Oh, I got my hand in it. Don't do that, guys. I'm gonna put some here. Yeah, I mean, I'm a righty, so I probably should have started over here first, but that's okay. I'm putting a little bit in these different areas. So if you look at your reference picture, you're going to see that they're also kind of over the cloud. I mean, over some of these clouds too. So we're not going to do too much. I'm not going to go crazy, but we don't go crazy. Okay, it's kind of nice to add a little bit of white to this red and this orange. Okay, so I'm also going to go over the one that I had. You don't have to do that. I'm just sort of lightening it up. And you find that there's too much paint on it, just wipe off your brush. I think I'm gonna bring in a second brush. I'm gonna bring in a second pointy brush. That's good, a good pointy brush. Maybe that's good. Or maybe it's not. It's kind of fun hearing me rummage through all my brushes, right? Okay, so I'm going to take the same, I have another brush that's just like this one. And I'm going to start using, I'm going to start taking the Ultramarine, put a little bit of white in it. Okay, so I'm just going to start, I'm not done getting doing all the red stars, but I'm going to start adding some blue stars just to balance it out. So I've got some blue, it's ultramarine, a little bit of white, and I'm going to start dotting off. I think I'm going to have a blue star over here. See, that's kind of cool. I'm going to have another blue star over here. And it's good to kind of not have the stars all super evenly, like I'm kind of clustering them around, and then we can change that up too. Sometimes I have been known to take away stars when I feel like I've done too many that are too evenly spaced. Okay, I'm taking this white and ultramarine mix and adding it here. And I'm going to teach you how to make a little starburst also. So we're just sort of laying in where all the stars are going to be. We haven't actually like started making anything sparkle yet. Okay. Taking the blue, adding. It's kind of cool, right, guys? Adding another one right here. Make sure that some of them are a little bit different from each other. Add another blue one up here. And I'm going to go back in with my other brush. So I'm using two brushes. One's blue, one's red. And now I want to start adding a few more. There, just a few more. Have them be all kind of random, you know? And then we're going to put some over here. Maybe add a couple over here. Not too many, I don't want to go crazy. Okay. Just a couple more. And if they're kind of clustered together, these red dots can kind of touch each other. There. Okay, I'm gonna let you guys catch up a little bit. And I'm taking a little cadmium too here, so Some of that is orange. Okay, I'm gonna let you guys catch up for a sec. I'm gonna take a minute and kind of survey what I've done. So I'm putting both brushes into the water just to let it, just so I can see what I've done. And now I'm going to take my blue. I'm gonna wipe my blue down. I'm gonna use blue. I'm gonna go back to this little mix that I made, and now I'm gonna go right into getting some white. And that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna mix in a lot of white into this blue and make sure that the tip is fairly pointy. Okay, make sure this is clean. And I'm going to start going over everything. You see where I put the blue? I'm going to put a dot there. And look at that, that's a star. It's pretty cool, right? Isn't that awesome? So this, like, I am mixing in some white with this ultramarine, and I am going to go over that other blue star. I'm going to go over carefully. I'm going to try to do it from left to right so I don't go over. But isn't that so cool? And already, right? Here's another blue star. That's cool. And because it's over here, I want to make it a little bit brighter. So maybe I'm just going to add a dot of white in the middle of it. Is that awesome? And while I have some blue, while I have this white, I'm also going to add some white stars in some other areas. And just like that, you're creating a galaxy. And I'm going to go over that with the blue. I'm going to try not to touch the surface of my painting too much. I'm going to go over, still using the blue brush, I'm going to go back into the ultramarine and white, and I have a blue star here. And so the stars can all be different colors. So some of them are going to be bluer than the others. Isn't that super cool? Isn't that like a really fun illusion? And I'm going to go into all the blue, and I'm not using straight white to do this. I'm using blue and white. And some of them are going to be bigger. This one's going to be a little bit of a dot. And some of them are going to be brighter, and that's going to be a little bit brighter. Isn't that so cool? Do that a little bit. Isn't that so cool? I'm going to go, while my brush is still kind of dirty, I'm just going to go into the white, and I'm going to pick out certain areas where I didn't place any sort of dot and just sort of create and just sort of dot certain areas. So if you look at your picture, sometimes it's just a white dot. Okay. Go back in with just the white. Isn't that so cool? Isn't it amazing how just a little bit can do a lot? With that white, I'm gonna add I'm gonna go over some of this. And that one's gonna be a little bit brighter. And I think I wanna make this one a little bit brighter too. I'm gonna go back into my blue and white mixture and go over this blue. Okay, I'm gonna go back into my red now. So I'm going back into my red brush. Okay, I cleaned it. I'm gonna add a little bit of white into my red. So it's gonna be kind of like lighter and pink. And I'm going to, okay, some of this is wet. So I'm gonna go left to right. And I'm going to start adding white over some of my red. And maybe I might even add some pink stars in some places, just without the halo. And now I'm gonna go right into some more of this white. I'm going to add some more white to this pink. And I'm just going to start going over all the red stars. Not all the red stars. Some of them I might keep them red. And they can be all different colors and sizes. Sometimes I'm just going to make a pink star. And I'm going to go over all the red stars. Okay. Isn't this already looking pretty cool? So I'm using this pink, and I'm not gonna make all the stars pink. I'm gonna leave some of the red ones just red. Oh, thanks for coming in. Thanks for coming by. And a little bit more. How are you guys doing out there? How's your star paintings? Okay. Awesome. I'm going to make this one in just a little bit. This one's a big one. I'm not going to do a whole lot here. Sometimes I might take my finger and kind of blot it to make it kind of soft. But I'm using this pink paint to just sort of add to these red stars. Okay, and I made a whole mess of these red stars, so I'm just gonna go in and make some of these little pinker. So I'm just I put down the red, and now I'm just putting over the pink. This red and white mixture over the red. Okay. Is that looking pretty good, guys? That looks pretty cool, right? I'm gonna add a little bit more white to this. I'm gonna add a dot of white right in the middle. And then sometimes I like to just put my finger on it, just to soften it. There aren't gonna be too many really big stars, but. And now I'm just gonna go over. Yeah, it really does make it shine, doesn't it? It's kind of surprising. This is like a little trick. You don't need a lot to make this look like a whole galaxy. And it doesn't have to be a perfect circle, because the way that light bends, sometimes it's just the way it can feel, you know? I'm gonna add a little bit more white. I'm getting this a little bit mottled. Okay. Okay, a little bit back. Okay, a little bit more. Okay. And then we're going to pick some, and I'm going to show you how to make it kind of like starburst, right? I'm going to add a few more. And the white. All right, how about we pick a few? I think I'm gonna pick this big guy. And so something when you look at the photograph, you notice that all the stars, when they kind of starburst, when they burst, goes one way and one way. So basically, when we create some that look like actual stars that kind of look like this, they're all going to go in the same direction. And that's just from like probably what the telescope is seeing. But for us, just to kind of like some stars will be one way and then the other way, and that's going to look confusing. So I am going to take my brush, make sure it's nice and clean. I'm going to go right back into this pink and add a little bit more white. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take some white and directly put it on top of here, right? Okay, so I'm going to try not to cover up what I'm doing by getting too close to this painting, but I'm going to flatten out my my round brush. I'm flattening it out, right? It's pretty flat. And with that point, you're basically going to create like a line, right? So let's take some white paint into our, and this is going to be a little bit hard, but bear with me. I flattened out my round pointy brush, and I'm going to go this way, okay? And then I'm going to go this way with it. And there, it starts. It's like a burst, okay? Sometimes I get really scared. I'm afraid I'll mess up. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to make this one brighter, okay? And now I'm going to clean off my brush a little bit. And it works better if you don't have too much paint on it. That's why I put a little bit of white right in the middle already. And then I'm just going to go this way. And I'm basically just kind of touching. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing with, I'm going to pick this one. I'm going to do the same thing. Add a lot of white there. Try to flatten out my pointy brush. And then I'm going to get really close and I'm going to go this way. And then that way. And that's pretty cool. So there, it's like a little starburst. It might have been too much white, but that's okay. We can kind of go back to that too. I'm going to pick maybe one more that I'm going to do that to. Maybe, let's see, or maybe this one. Because this one's pretty white. I'm going to put a little dot of white. I'm going to flatten out and I'm going to use the edge of that. I'm going to flatten out my round brush. So usually it's like this, but now I've made it really flat. Okay, and I'm going to pick up some paint with both sides. And then I'm going to go that way and then this way. So it's pretty cool. Okay, so let me drop that brush in the water, and I'm going to pick up my blue brush. So this is the one I've been using for blue, and I'm going to pick up some white paint and put it into that ultramarine again, and I'm going to try to get that fairly whitish, and I'm going to pick let me pick out this guy. I'm going to pick out this guy right here. And I'll put a little bit of white. I'm going to flatten out my round brush, my point brush. Okay, make sure it's pretty flat. And then I'm going to try to get really close, and I'm going to accurately go this way. Okay, that kind of messed up. Kind of messed up there a little bit. Let me kind of clean that off. See, even I mess up all the time, actually. I mess up doing this all the time. That was a little messy. Wait for that to dry. But there, actually that's a little bit better now that I cleaned up that side. Okay, I'm gonna go into another blue, or maybe a white one. Let's just pick this white one here. Let's pick this white star. I'm gonna add a little bit of white in the middle. Flatten out my brush, and then I'm going to very closely just create a starburst, making an X. There. That's pretty cool. And I'm going to do I'm going to also do this one over here. I'm going to get really close, and I'm just going to create an X. over that white and there. And then I'm going to do some over here too, because I think that would be really cool. So I'm going to pick up my red brush, go back to my red brush, and try to create a little bit more. There's not enough stars, so I'm going to put more pink stars, my pink and red. And brighten up some more of these colors. Okay, so I'm going to go into the white with the pink. Okay, I'm going to add a dot of white, and I'm going to make some bursts where I'm going to try to wipe off some paint. Too much paint is not actually good for doing this. And where I put that there, I'm going to make that into a starburst. There. And then I'm going to pick another one over here and do the same thing. I'm going to do that here. Up. It's looking pretty cool. How are you guys feeling? How are you guys doing with this? Have you guys made it to the end with me? For those of you guys who have made it to the end, I'm going to take a little bit more white and just sort of dot, pick up some random ones and just brighten them a little bit. I'm going to pick out one more. I'm going to burst this one. A little bit of white, flatten out my brush, and burst. It's a little bright, but that's okay. Kind of made it very bright. I might do one more blue one with you guys. Let's pick out a good blue one. Maybe this one over here. I'll add a little bit of white in the middle. And then, okay, and then I'm going to put a little X there. Whew. Okay, and then maybe one more over here. Okay, guys, what do you guys think? How did that go for you? I'm gonna take a minute, let's take a breath because painting is exhausting. This is great, this is really fun. This is one of my favorite things to paint. Okay, so, all right, let me switch back. So I'm gonna let you guys kind of see what's going on here first. See how you feel. Let me know how that turned out for you guys because I wanna see it. Okay, and let's go. So guys, that was so fun. This is like one of my favorite things to paint ever, space. I love it. So I really hope that you guys like post what you do, and I really want to see it. You could post it on the link that the Artist Network for this particular show page. And remember that you can also download a free ebook from Artist Network called Abstract Painting Techniques. And remember, I'm here Thursdays, 3 p.m. So I am really excited. Please post your work. I cannot wait to see what you guys do for this class because this space is one of my favorite things, and I really hope that you guys painted some pretty stellar space paintings. So I'm going to see you guys soon, Thursdays, 3 p.m. Eastern. I'll see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. Okay, bye.